Good morning, friends. Yesterday, we explored the dividing line between God-honoring concern and the sinful anxiety that harasses us and distracts us from our God-given purpose throughout the day. And since we're not supposed to let that kind of anxiety master us, today we're going to explore what we ought to do instead. Paul writes, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." Because if you think about it, the best way to get rid of a bad habit isn't to just say, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. It's not simply to remove the bad habit, which then leaves an empty void, which could just as easily be filled by another bad habit. Rather, we need to quit the bad habit and then replace it with a good habit. And that is what the apostle is telling us to do here. Since the command is to not be anxious about anything, we then replace that anxiety by, in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And I hope you see the love that God has for his people in this command, because he is the eternal God of the universe, sovereign over every asteroid and comet, over every planet, over every star, every galaxy, and yet he says, you, yes, you, don't be anxious. Instead, bring your requests to me. Tell me what is on your heart. Tell me your desires. Tell me what you want. Because that is where most of our anxieties come from, isn't it? We want certain things, we desire certain things, and we're worried that we might not get them. And I don't just mean that we want material things. Anxieties aren't just caused by wanting a raise or a new game system or a luxury car. No, far more often than not, our anxieties are caused by desires like, I hope I don't get laid off, or I hope my son makes friends at school, or I hope my husband gets home safely in the middle of this snowstorm. We want and hope that certain things will happen, and since we can't directly control whether they do or they don't, we worry. But the Lord of heaven and earth knows you and says to you, bring those requests to me. And if this verse isn't enough to convince you of that, then consider 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7, where the apostle Peter writes, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you." Friends, if you have submitted yourself to Jesus Christ, if you have called on his name in faith, believing that he died to take the punishment of your sins on himself and that God raised him from the dead, then you are a child of God. And as a child of God, he is given the right to approach him at any time. You can approach him at any time, from any place, in any situation, and pour out your desires to him. And we need to be reminded of that sometimes, because sometimes as Christians, we maybe fall into the trap of thinking that the only proper thing to pray for is that God's will be done. But in truth, in these passages, it's sort of like God is saying, hey, right now, don't worry about my will. Rest assured, my will be done for you, for your good. But for right now, just tell me the truth. Tell me your desire. Tell me what you want. God gives us the freedom to be honest with him like that. And nothing we can say is going to shock him or surprise him or throw him off his game. And do you know what he's promised us if we are willing to trust him enough to be honest with him? Well, first, it's important to realize what God hasn't promised, and that is he has not promised that he's simply going to give us what we want. But he does promise to give us what we need, whether we think we need it or not. He promises to give us his peace. He promises to give us his peace of heart and mind that surpasses all our ability to understand. And we're going to look more into that tomorrow. But for today, recognize how awesome God is in his love and his care for his children. And so pray to him full of thanksgiving for his goodness. And just be honest. Make your request known to him and cast all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you. Have a good and godly day. I'll see you tomorrow.